Hi everybody. I'm not sure if I'm going to upload this because I haven't prepared what I'm going to say, so I'm just feel like talking because I had the idea of making a talk about I want to title this video, or whichever one ends up being uploaded, something like a child of parental alienation talks about his own parentally alienated child and his own parental alienation, because I am a child of parental alienation. When I was a child, I was seriously alienated by both parents. So I wanted to talk about parental alienation as a person with personal experience and as a left-behind parent of an internationally parentally abducted child who is also, in my opinion, being parentally alienated and brainwashed by the other parent, who I don't want to discredit or defame. That's why I don't say her name, because I believe she loves our son very much. But we can all be misguided in some things. We can be good in things, but all of us make mistakes, and I believe she's misguided and doesn't understand the damage she does because she's not as complex a person as I am. So she will understand the basic physical needs of a child and the love a child needs, but I don't believe she understands the concept of parental alienation, or when she is alienating him, or what child brainwashing is, because she doesn't actually believe these subjects exist. She thinks I imagine it all. If you Google parental alienation or child brainwashing on the internet, you will find it does exist. It's a science. It's a new science, because authorities are only just now beginning to accept it. The United Nations are now making legislations on child brainwashing. Excuse me. And in the United States, you can actually see on YouTube, there's a judge sends a woman to prison for parental alienation. And she has to do it 5 years in a row for present herself and put herself in prison for 15 days a year or something. And so some countries are already recognizing it as a crime. Even Singapore, which is one of the countries I accuse of being a human rights abuse nation, it is a human rights abuse country, but I mean, they don't apply the laws they bring in and make, but even they are in dialogue to create legislation to accept the topic of parental alienation and to make studies of it, because it's a scourge and there are millions of children around the world. In fact, most children will have experienced a mild version of parental alienation. Parental alienation is basically when one parent does or says things or creates situations to make the child think that one parent is good and the other parent is bad, or to side with one. Signs of parental alienation is when everything one parent does is great and nothing the other parent does is good at all, and that when gratitude is shown to one parent and the child defends that parent, but whatever good things or gifts or whatever the alienated parent does, it's never respected, accepted, or a thank you or anything. So I just went to Singapore for visit my son over the Christmas period. From the 19th to 24th, I stayed at the Holiday Inn, and we had a great time. Playing in the pool, we had a sauna, I took him to the virtual room. I had a great time. I recommend the virtual room in Singapore. You can only finish, it's a virtual reality thing, you can only finish if you collaborate together, help each other. You can't finish the game otherwise. And so I thought to rebuild the alienation and rebuild the bonding between me and my son would be a great experience, because we had to collaborate and communicate properly and help each other to get through the game. And we got 100%, and you have to be over 10 years old to play this game. But I talked with them And it's not the law, but it's their rule. It's not a constitution or anything, so it's not forbidden, but it's their rules. And so they looked at my son Angelo, and I spoke with them, and then they checked him out and see that he's very mature, and he's actually, you know, he can talk about stuff that some 14-year-old kids don't even understand yet. He's so intelligent. I'm so proud of him. He's such an intelligent boy. And so they let him play. And he was also born, when he was born, he was the 7th tallest baby of 2009 in Singapore, the 7th tallest of the whole country. And he's still, I think, number 7 of his age group, the tallest in Singapore. So he's a big boy, yeah. And, you know, we won, and we had a great time. We were high-fiving, and we really solved every problem together and helped each other. So I'd recommend for parentally alienated parents and children in Singapore, or any country where you have the virtual room game, to go and play that game, because it's very, very good to make you and your alienated child rebond, because you have to collaborate and communicate properly. I think that's obvious. So, but anyway, my son, because in the rulings of the joint custody, the final rulings of joint custody of my son, I'm a joint custodian, a lawful joint custodian. I have rights as a parent to sign which school he goes to. I've never been asked. I don't even know where his school is. I know it's called the Zonghua School, but there's about 5 in Singapore. I assume it's probably near his house. But they're schooling him without my consent or my signature. The mother doesn't recognize the joint custody order. She thinks she's the sole custodian and parent, or she acts as if she is. She never sends me medical reports, or I've had 2 school reports. I asked her for the latest one, and it says, I think 2010 on it. So she just sent me an old one from a few years ago, hoping I didn't notice. But actually, I don't have school reports. I've had 2 out-of-date ones in the 3.5 years since, well, my son was abducted in March, April. I think it was April 2014. I'm bad with dates. So, and she puts him in, she's the main caregiver, so little issues, she doesn't have to ask me about it, but issues which are more important in the child's life, she needs my consent, which she never asked me for. She asked me if he could do a drama course. I said I'd have no problem with that, but I also have a request. I want him to have a private teacher to learn Thai, because the only way he can take over my business is if he knows how to speak, read and write Thai, which she refuses. And then I think she's probably put him in the drama course, even though I said, well, if you won't let him have a Thai teacher, then I won't let him do the drama course, which isn't very good, because I'd like him to do whatever he wants to do. Only thing is, I'm not sure if he wants to do drama. I think it's what she wants him to be. She wants to mould him into what she wants him to be, as most of us parents do, but it's a crime. We shouldn't. Children are not a sponge to be filled. They're a seed to be nurtured. So you don't try to force a child that is artistically gifted to become a mathematician, because the right side of his brain doesn't work. It's the left side of his brain that's working. What you have to do is present a child with everything to play with and everything to look at and learn, and books, and see which ones he picks up and see which ones he's attracted to and which things he excels in and he likes doing, and then lead him in that direction so that he will become successful in a profession he enjoys, which is something he's good at. That's nurturing a seed. It's not filling him like a sponge, which is what schools do. Actually, you know, in the old days we didn't have schools. You taught your own children. If you were a blacksmith, you taught him your trade. I'd like to teach my son my trade. But I also respect that if he grows up and he wants to be an astronaut or a grave digger, that's up to him, that's his life. But he can still come home in the evenings, put on my websites and run my online shops if I die, and My online shops work very well. Many of you are my friends and subscribers and customers. You bought my ebooks, you buy my amulets. Some people donate to me for the kata chanting tutorials I make and publish, so you can learn how to chant and pronounce your chanting for your amulets. And so, I have a good little business, and I hope I deserve it for all the work I do. Most of my customers and friends seem happy and respect for what I do. I'm not the cheapest shop in the world, but I think I'm the only online shop that gives so many long pages of information and support and puts so much work into helping you to read about and understand your amulets and how to pray to them or how to use them. And it takes me a lot of hours, so I have to cover that, so I include that in my prices. If something doesn't get delivered or gets lost, I'll send you another one and I'll take the losses myself, or I'll give you your money back. I always do that and never let my customer lose. So I count that a tiny bit on top of each amulet in case a few a year get lost, and I refund. That's why governments tax people, so that if you have an accident, then the National Health will help you with your medicine. In England anyway, it's called National Health Service. If you don't work or you pay taxes and you work, it's free. Yeah, you need an operation. My friend Alistair just had his hip operated. You have to wait until you come in line. But a place like Singapore, I think you have to pay. My ex-wife spent a night in hospital giving birth to my son. It cost $10,000. She signed out on the next day. She should have actually stayed for 2 or 3 nights, but it's just too expensive. So unless you've got $10,000, if you're pregnant in Singapore, you're screwed, man. You're screwed. You're going to be in debt and be paying it off for years, Anyway, this is supposed to be about a parentally alienated child who himself grew up and has a parentally alienated child. My experience of parental alienation, what it did to me was that basically my mum, when I was staying with my mum, I was allowed something like 10 days a week at Easter, and I'd have Christmas with Dad, and I'd have 10 weeks with Mum. She lived in the island of Malta. And then when I lived with my mum, then I would have summer holidays with my dad in England. So either way, I used to get about 50, 60 days with each, 40, 50, 60 days with each parent a year. But sometimes I said, I want to live with Dad. Sometimes I said, I want to live with Mum. And that's the only real good thing they did. Because they alienated me, it's not good, but at least when I said I wanted to go live with the other parent, they always let me go. That's also because they were selfish, and they didn't really want to have to look after me. They just wanted to have fun. I remember most of my childhood alone in the garden, in the house, with the house locked. And I don't know who the hell my mum was, but if you want me to guess, she was in the pub or with her friends partying or something, and my dad was out in the betting shop. And when my mum threw him out, at first I didn't see him for a few months because she did that. Told me he's got a new wife and he doesn't love us and he doesn't want us anymore, which wasn't true. He was trying his hardest to get access to see me the whole time while she was lying to me to turn me against him. I love my mum, who's passed away. May she rest in peace in heaven. She didn't realise what parents do things in hate when they're angry and with each other, and they forget the child. And they take stances which do not benefit the welfare of the child at all. At all. And even me and my ex-wife have done that, and it's very hard not to do it, not to go through a whole divorce and custody without making a single mistake. So I'm not going to say I didn't make any mistakes either. I must have done, and probably still am doing, in desperation, and she definitely is. It doesn't benefit our child at all. That's why it has to stop. The thing is, it can't stop because Judge Nicole Lowe of the Singaporean Family Justice ruled, saying that my son is not allowed, he's allowed to see me for 8 hours a day if I visit Singapore, if it's holidays. If it's his school time, then I'm allowed to see him for 4 hours a day. I have to advise 3 weeks in advance, and he's not allowed to overnight with me in the hotel. So he was abducted in 2014, got my first visit in sometime halfway through 2015. Even though I made 5 applications for interim access, they never even responded or commented on it. They just ignored the affidavits. Nothing ever happened in Singapore. God knows why. They don't understand the meaning or the purpose of interim access. Interim means between now and the end of the court case, let the child see his other parent so his life can continue normally whilst the divorce is going. But what they did was made me go through 2.5 years of divorcing, refusing to comment on access, and then just make access orders at the end. So I saw my son once during the first 2.5 years, because I flew to Singapore one time when there was being a case conference and my lawyer was in chambers, and I sent a message to the other parent, the abducting parent, and I said, do you know what, I'm going to go sit outside chambers when my lawyers are in court, and I'm going to let him ask the judge, if seeing as I'm in Singapore on that same day, can I have an access, because I haven't seen my son. Because they don't recognise, actually, not for me, but for my son, he needs access to his father. It's unhealthy to let so long pass without him seeing the other parent. And so whilst my ex's lawyer were discussing the terms of access and the judge was administrating that in chambers, I was sat outside waiting to hear if I could see my son that day. But I told my ex a few days before, couple of weeks before, that I'm going to fly there and sit there and see if the judge has the balls to let me sit outside the court and let me fly home without letting me see my son, because that would be really difficult. So I knew that was going to get a 99% chance of getting me finally a visit with my son. My mistake was warning the other parent that that's what I was going to do, because whilst her lawyer was discussing terms of access, which she asked for supervised, that she's allowed to tag along with me, that I can't just take him off on my own. That was the terms of access she was trying to deal out with the judge. And my lawyer was trying to get it non-supervised. Whilst they were discussing that, I was sat outside and I was served with a PPOE, that means a protection order. So she had gone behind the back of her own lawyer. He was appalled by it, so was my lawyer, and the judge was really, really not pleased about it at all, because it made his ruling and decision on that day very difficult to make perfect. It was impossible for him to make it a nice way. And here's why. Because she used another lawyer without telling her official lawyer, and served that protection order on me whilst I was sat in the court outside the chambers when the judge was discussing the matter. Obviously, what do you think? I don't know. What I think is she did that thinking that if she can get a protection order on me, then the judge won't be able to allow me access with supervised access. Unfortunately, the judge, who I demanded, I didn't want a Muslim judge anyway because I'm a Buddhist, and I respect all religions, but I want a Buddhist judge for a Buddhist family. I'll have a Christian as well, but I don't want a Muslim judge because they hate, Muslim religion hates Buddhism. And that judge wasn't nice, I can say that for sure. He didn't want to talk to me. I asked to speak to him, refused, said I don't want to talk to him. So he obviously was against me from the beginning. Yeah. Not a good Muslim. I know some very good Muslims. The Muslim religion teaches very good things, unfortunately. Just like Christians and Buddhists and people of all religions, they don't follow their teachings really, and they twist them into their own version and go and do the things that their religions forbid. But anyway, it's not good to talk about that. All people of all religions have their freedom to believe and practice their religion as they wish. This all teaches the same thing, really, to be a good person and don't be bad, and to develop love in your heart. So but I didn't want a Muslim judge in a Buddhist divorce and custody case of a Buddhist family. I think a Buddhist judge would be fitting. Yeah. So the judge then did a stupid order. He wasn't pleased, but he did a stupid order. He allowed the visit, that's a good bit, but he also allowed the supervision of the mother, knowing that I'd just been served with a protection order, that I'm not allowed to talk to her or approach her. But he allowed, so I'm not allowed to talk to her or approach her, but I have to go take my son, and she's allowed to walk. The judge said at a reasonable distance. They never say how many meters or feet. This is really bad. It's difficult for them to say what is a reasonable distance, so they use the word reasonable distance. For me, reasonable distance means within sight. Within sight that I couldn't grab him and run off with him, which I wouldn't do anyway. You know, you don't do that to your own children. You don't kidnap your own children if you love them. You don't do that. You don't kidnap a child from his other parent and stop him from seeing his other parent. I don't anyway. I consider that a real crime. It's a real crime against a child to do that. And it's a very selfish thing to do. But anyway, in order to prevent that, so allow her to supervise my visit at a reasonable distance. Now I'm going to upload a video after this to show you what she considered a reasonable distance. And you can see that my poor son, it doesn't look good, I warn you. Yeah, and I'm going to put the video that it's for people who are over 18 to watch, because I don't want children to watch it on YouTube. And it shows me trying to go through the shopping mall with my son and take him around to buy him some toys and play in the games rooms and stuff. And the mother and her mother are about 6 inches to 2 feet away from me the whole time, and she keeps walking up and stroking his head and pulling him over to her and interfering in the access, trying to provoke me so that I speak to her or walk towards her, which I did, to ask her to please step away a little bit, stop provoking me. And when I did that, her mother faked a big jump like this, as if I was going to hit her, because we were in public, so they were trying to create a situation so she could call the cops and say, look, I have a protection order, he's harassing me, and stop me from seeing my son forever. It was all the strategy. She was furious that the visit was allowed. I mean, that really surprised her. She probably thought that wasn't going to happen. Unfortunately, it doesn't please me, you know, because my son suffered. Yeah, it's not about, oh, ha ha, you lost. That's how parents hurt their children, by playing games with each other. And so I don't have any happiness that it pissed her off that I was allowed to visit, because that made her walk up my ass the whole time and provoke me in front of my son. My son had to go through a 4-hour visit with me saying, come walk with daddy, son. Hey, please, can you step away? Please step away at a distance the whole time. And it never happened. So keep subscribed and watch that. I promise you you'll suffer, and I promise you even I won't look good. You'll be thinking the father's wrong there too. He shouldn't do that. He should just concentrate on his son and ignore them. But you see how hard that is when somebody's trying to stop you see your son. I have anger too. So I did speak to her and I did approach her, because she was cramming up my ass. And I wish I could have the merit to have just been like Jesus or Buddha or something, or Mahatma Gandhi, and just calmly take my son and let her make a fool out of herself and me not make one out of myself. Unfortunately, I also made a fool out of myself. I watch it and I feel embarrassed. I feel very, very, that she is shameful, but I also feel embarrassed myself about it. So I'd like you to watch that in the next video. And I'd like you to hope any of you who watch that will have seen this video first, so that you understand my feelings on the video. because it's not nice to watch a child go through that. And my parents, you know, when I realized that one parent was telling me this about the other parent, my mum told me this about my dad and that about my dad, and then when my dad told me this about my mum and that about my mum, there came a point where I started to think, if you look at Ryan Thomas Speaks on YouTube, he's a child of parental alienation who reunited with his father many years after, I think it was 9 years or something, where he hated his dad and didn't want to talk to him because he was brainwashed. That's a nice one because he got reunited. He lives with his dad now, or doesn't live with him, but they're good friends and they have their relationship. But he says that he realized it in his early or mid-20s, and that if when you're 30 you still haven't realized, then something's weird. But actually with me, I realized it a lot earlier. I started to think about it about 8 years old, but it coagulated sometime around the time when I was between 11 and 13 years old. And I became a real rebel, yeah, after that, because I thought, actually, this means that parents don't tell truth to their children. I thought parents knew everything and are perfect and only do good for their children. When I realized that they both do that against each other, I thought, well, if one of them has to be lying, they can't both be telling the truth. And I thought, well, actually, if one of them can lie, both of them can lie. And so a few more years passed thinking about it, in the end I figured out that, yeah, actually both of them have lied, and both of them are disgusting for what they've done. And I didn't speak to my mum or my dad for about 25 years because of that. And I thought I hated them. Buddhism teaches you to respect your parents, but I think the word parent, you have to earn it. You don't just deserve the respectable status of parent, of loving parent, by just having a baby. You have to actually be a good parent to deserve that respect. If not, I don't think you deserve it. I'm a Westerner in that, you know. So my parents, I do respect them. They gave me life, and I do love them in my own particular way. But it doesn't mean I don't know what shit they did. And one of the reasons I forgive them for that is because I've done shit myself now in my own life. And I know that parents aren't perfect. But when I was in my teens, I expected parents to be perfect. So it formed a lot of hate. It's like putting safety pins in my hair, in my nose, get a tattoo. I took drugs. I became alcoholic. I mean, between 11 to 13, I became alcoholic. It was a bottle of wine or two every day. I used to have a bottle of whiskey in my bedroom. And my mum never had any problem with that. When I was 12, 13, she used to take me out to the disco in Rabat in Malta, the Roman's Den, drinking whiskey all night with her. Actually, I used to drink Benedictine, or there were various ones, Canadian Club with ginger ale. But pissed off my head, you know, at 12 years old, 13 years old, going like this in the disco, John Travolta, because it was those times of the, what was that, Saturday Night Fever movie with John Travolta. So everybody was disco dancing. And it was the 70s, 1976, 77, 78, 79. Those were the days. So I thought it was great. I thought my mum was great for letting me do that. But now looking back, I think, what the hell you're doing, taking a 12, 13-year-old kid out to a bar and letting them drink whiskey just so that you can do it. Like going off to get some snacks at 6 in the morning and drive home drunk off your heads, risking his life drunk driving. It's actually disgusting, isn't it? But I thought it was great. I was one of the few kids in the world allowed to do that. Yeah. So on the two sides to that, I loved her for it at the time, and I still don't blame her. She didn't know any better. She didn't go to school. She had to bring up her little brother and her siblings, younger siblings, because her mum had to go work in a factory in the war to build tanks or something. So she lived on a beach on Brighton or somewhere, Brighton Beach, in camps, in tents, and she had a very hard time. So she didn't have an education. She could never spell properly. She spells soup like S-O-O-P. I used to love reading her mails because the way she spelled words was so funny. And I love my mum. She's a kind person at heart, and she never did anything harmful knowing she was doing it. Like most of us, we do harm sometimes we don't realise. I'm half an hour into this talk. It's supposed to be about parentally alienated child. Parental alienation talks about his parentally alienated child. Well, anyway, I believe I understand parental alienation myself a lot from being a child of parental alienation, and makes it easier for me to see my own son's parental alienation. It makes it easier for me to be careful not to do the same as the other alienating parent, to say bad things about her. But I have actually a couple of times trying to find a way to explain to him that, she doesn't tell him to send me any messages or reply to my messages, but that when he's on visits with me, after an hour or two, I know she's so freaked attached to him, sickly attached to him, that she'll be suffering because she wants him with her all the time, and that's why she won't let me have him for a few hours. And the only reason she does is because the court has made her by court order. If not, I still wouldn't have seen my child. I have something on tape I made yesterday where she said, why don't you just go off with your girlfriend and let me and Angelo get on with our lives, meaning go away and don't see your son. But I'm a legal joint custodian. You can't tell me that. Let you get on with your lives because I'm part of his life. So if you're listening, mother of my child, stop telling me to leave you and Angelo alone, because all I want to do is leave you alone, and I will if you stop trying to stop me seeing my son, and you let him travel to Thailand, just as stated in Article 10 of the Rights of the Child, that every child whose parents live in different countries has the right to leave and re-enter his own country for purposes of family reunion in the home, not in a hotel. And so Judge Nicole Loburn ruled well to give me joint custody, but she's taking no notice. She doesn't behave. And if I wanted to complain every time to the court she misbehaves and disobeys one of the rulings, a lawyer asked me for $10,000 retainer, and before we've even got to court, he's asking me for $10,000 again. I spent $80,000 over the 2.5 years of the case paying lawyers, and they never even got me interim access during the whole 2.5 years, which interim access usually takes 3 months in most cases for a father or a mother, a parent, to get access during a divorce and custody case. With me, I never got any, even though I made 5 applications for it. And my lawyers, to make more money, every time they made an application for it, they didn't apply for a regular interim access. Say that the judge says, okay, he's allowed to come once every month or 3 months or every 2 weeks or every weekend and see them. No, it's, okay, today he can visit his son. If I want it again, I have to pay them another $5,000, so they ask for a one-time access. But they could have asked for a regular interim access order. They didn't, because it was less profitable for them. That's lawyers for you, most of them, with the exclusion of a few, who I'd like to say M. Ravi, Ravi in Singapore, most famous human rights lawyer, who the state of Singapore tried to defame for bipolarness and took him off the bar. Unfortunately, they did him a favour because he's now a top consultant of a law firm and human rights, and he's become a superstar, and he's written a book, and he's now better than a lawyer because he consults and he puts videos on YouTube helping people to know their rights, and he emails them their ways of how they can do this and that and file this and that without having to pay a lawyer, and he's a good guy. Mr. Ravi. I say Ravi, I don't know if it's Ravi, but I say Ravi because in Thai that name, it's a Hindi name. Ravi, we say Ravi, it's a long last I, long vowel, Ravi, but I'm not M. Ravi. An English person would say M. Ravi, or Ravi M. M. Ravi. You can subscribe to him if you're Singaporean and you believe in human rights, because he has fought people with death sentences. He usually loses, but that's not his fault. He puts forth a very good case. It's very hard to win against the judges in Singapore. It's not easy. But anyway, when I criticize lawyers, the professions, as a bunch of mercenaries who take advantage of people in distress, because most of them do. Money, 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 money. Bunch of bastards, really, most of them. Really, really. I'm absolutely appalled at the legal trade. But not M. Ravi. Couldn't exclude him and also salute him. I salute you, my friend. You're a good guy. And I'd like to thank you for the free advice you've given me over the last couple of years. Not that I've taken all of it, but it was all real good advice. Thank you for it, because you've never taken a penny off me, and you're good enough to talk to me, even though you didn't know me. So, if you really need a good human rights lawyer, you use the firm who he is the consultant and advisor to. You just look for him on Facebook. He's the best. I'm digressing. I have ADHD, you know, it's an attention deficit. So an alienated child of parental alienation, talking about his alienated child, has ended up becoming only a partial part of this vlog. But anyway, I hope I'll continue to tell this story about my own parents and my own experiences. Make a series out of it, because I'm complex. It takes years talking to me before you know what I'm really about, and how makes me tick, and what's in this heart here of mine, what moves it, what moves and shakes it. So this is where I've decided to come out of my facial hiding. You usually see me with the Tawitsawan corn mask, or just a still picture of a podcast, sound podcast. And now here you got a John Spencer on vlog. Unfortunately, there's parental alienation and child abduction and human rights. But I promise you all, to Buddha Magic fans who follow my Buddha Magic project and Amulet TV project, Amulets TV, that I will start to vlog like this and talk to you. And maybe on my Ajahn Spencer Lersi, today I'm just dressed like a guy, because to be a Lersi or a Rishi or a ascetic or a hermit practitioner of magical and science and inner knowledge and self-learning and self-enlightenment and meditation and wisdom seeking and self-mastery, I think I'm going to start making video casts like this too, vlogs, because I'm sure a lot of people want to see me doing that. I look like a hippo, look at my teeth, but I don't care. That's another thing I'll talk about one day, about overcoming the self-made suffering of worrying about what you look like or the spot on your nose and stuff. How to get over that, because that's a product of the atta, the belief in a self that is separate from what you think the outside universe is, which is not separate. Nothing is separate. And if you see somebody's got a spot on their nose, you don't care, it doesn't matter. You can still see their values and beauty and handsomeness. It doesn't matter. So when you've got a spot on your nose and you look in the mirror and you have to go out, just remember how it doesn't matter to you when you see other people with a spot on their nose. So stop worrying, because it doesn't matter to them either that you got a spot on your nose. And the one idiot that does make fun of it, he's not even worth worrying about anyway. That's an idiot. Okay? I think to close now, just a quick change of subject. Well, no, I'll do that in my next vlog. The next video is going to be the video of the mother supervising my first ever access during the divorce and custody case, where I was served a protection order as the judge was in chambers discussing the conditions of my access, and it was served on me without the knowledge of the judge or either of my or my ex-wife's lawyers, as a strategy to stop the visit from happening, simply because I'm stupid and too honest, and I warned her about it in messages before I flew there. So it gave her time to prepare that protection order to try and foil my attempt to get access to my son. I got the access, but the visit, I don't know how it didn't damage him, because he took it really well. I mean, the hero of the next video is my son Angelo. You see what's going on between me and the other parent, and you just see how well my son gets through it. I think hats off to him. He's more of a man than me or his mother. And he was only 7 years old at the time. He's 8 now. So please follow the next video and watch it. And watch this video first before you judge me or her. Best not to judge anyone, because nobody's perfect. And sometimes, out of ignorance, we all make mistakes. It's not about who's at fault and who's the goodie and the baddie. I don't want you to focus on my deeds or the mother's deeds, rather the child, because that's the important focal point of this whole vlog series and this whole campaign I'm making, is to watch how my son gets through that visit. It's more important to look at the wrongness or the rightness and finger pointing and blaming her or blaming me or saying we're both at fault, and that doesn't get the child problem solved. That's two adults have to sort their own shit out together. What you have to focus on is the child is suffering. He's suffering parental alienation, he's suffering obstruction. But don't go blaming the person who's obstructing it. Let's not blame her. Let's not blame her. I'm not trying to make you blame the other person. That's typical as also in IPCA, International Parental Child Abduction, or child brainwashing, or divorce and custody, international or national, that each parent tries to scapegoat the other parent. It's not about the parent, it's about the child, for God's sake. So who cares? You know, blaming me or the other parent isn't going to help the child. What's going to help the child is to let him have his normal access, and that Judge Nicole Lovern's ruling that my son is not allowed to overnight with me until or to travel to Thailand, and even not allowed to overnight with me if I'm staying in Singapore, for another 2 years. And he's already had 3 years of that deprivation. And then, when he's 10, I'm allowed to come, pick him up, she gives me his passport, and I fly to Thailand with him for a maximum of 7 days each time. Which means, when he has holidays, if he has a month holiday, I'll go and pick him up 3 times for a week, because the mother won't say, okay, to save all the money and the flights and the tiresomeness, the rulings allow 7 days each time. I say each time means each time I take him. You can take him for 7 days. The mother says, no, you can take him for 7 days each time he has a holiday. In which case they say, well, what about when he has a 3-day holiday? Can I take him for 7 days? So we're arguing that when the judge, Nicole Lowe, wrote that I'm allowed to take him for 7 days each time, she didn't say each time he has a holiday, and she didn't say each time I take him. And so it's unclear what she meant. And she refuses to talk to either of us. They want me to go and pay a $10,000 retainer to a lawyer to call her for an adjustment of that ruling. But I call Singapore for an adjustment of that ruling to redefine it. Because if not, 2 times a year he has a month holiday, I'm going to have to pick him up 3 times in each of those months and bring him back 3 times for 7 days each time. And that's really tiring. So why doesn't the mother just save him the stress and say, well, okay, instead of taking him 6 times for a week, why don't you just take him 2 times for 21 days each time? Because actually, I remember going to Malta. I used to go for about, it was 8 to 10 weeks because I lived in boarding school, so summer holidays were really long. And I can always remember after about 2 weeks saying, I've just got settled in now, Mum. You know, it takes 10 days every time to get into the rhythm and into my Malta life. And so allowing my son only 7 days, actually, you know, the first day's lost travelling, the last day's lost travelling back, so it's only 5 days. He's not going to get the chance to feel at home, or it's just too short. It's not long enough for bonding the experience. So that's a stupid ruling again from you, Nicole Lowe, Judge Nicole Lowe. Sue me for defamation if you want. I'm not saying anything that's not true. I'm saying what you ruled, and I'm explaining why it's detrimental to my son's welfare, and why it's causing disputes between me and the mother, which in turn sends waves out to Angelo, my son, and he feels the brunt of it. He's the one who suffers it more than anybody. So I need an adjustment of the rulings that he's allowed to travel for 21 days in his long holidays. Yeah, just like I was allowed to travel for the summer holidays to Mum if I lived with Dad, or the summer holidays to Dad if I lived with Mum, and a couple of other short visits throughout the year like Christmas or Easter. And let's be fair and stop being unfair, Judge Nicole, or try to think clearly, because I think you didn't make a wise decision. I know you tried your best, and I'm sure you tried to do the right thing. Unfortunately, you were the first time in that case, because I had a different judge every hearing. And you had 30 minutes before the case to peruse the documents, which were about this big documents from me of affidavits, and from her about the mother about this. So how the hell are you going to, in 20 minutes with a fresh case in front of you, how are you going to make a wise decision about the life of my child? You can't, and you failed, Judge Nicole Lowe of the Family Justice Courts of Singapore in Havelock Square. You failed my son, and you need to adjust that ruling. And I can't afford to, and I'm not going to afford to, pay rip-off lawyers who will go into the court, file something differently phrased to how I told them to phrase it, yeah, and you will then ignore them and make me waste my money. Because that's what's happened throughout the whole 2.5 years of the case and the $80,000 I spent. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to force you through this. Or if not, I'm going to ask the United Nations and Jennifer Yokstad at the Children's Rights section in Bangkok of the United Nations, and bless her, Miss Ishtar, at the mikk-ev.de official international custody mediation agency who represent the UN for many countries. I won't say, I already said in a previous video what they do. Actually, I don't know exactly their activities, but I know they've just been to Singapore to initiate mediation processes. And so I ask you at mikk-ev.de, the MIKK agency, to try and mediate this for us to get my son his right to Article 10 of the Rights of the Child, to leave and enter his own country for purposes of family reunion in the home, not in a bloody hotel in Singapore, and his right to overnights, because no reason was given why he can't overnight. That's absolutely ridiculous. That 5 years without an overnight, and then suddenly allow me to take him for 7 overnights in Thailand. That's like deprive him of overnight, no warm-up, so that when he finally gets his 7 overnights, it's like a shock treatment or what? Is that your idea of how child psychological welfare? Is to prepare him for 7 nights in Thailand, you give him 5 years of no overnights. That's not how to prepare him for his first Thailand holiday. That's how to shock him and to alienate him. He needs to have an overnight with me in the hotel. in Singapore, and I want that, and I demand that. I've asked the mother, she can give permission. She can say, yeah, let him come for a holiday and stop all of this. I'll be able to stop this campaign. She's telling me to stop this campaign. It's embarrassing her. She says, I'm disrupting our son's life by making this campaign. Well, I'd say, well, I wouldn't be making this campaign if you weren't disrupting my son's life by trying to obstruct access, trying to alienate him and brainwash him before the day comes when I can take him to Thailand, so that when the day comes, you'll have him so brainwashed that he will sign an affidavit saying he doesn't want to see his father, and you'll take it to court after brainwashing him to try and prevent that first visit in 2019 when they come, and she's supposed to hand over his passport to me, and I'll take him on holiday, which I've been waiting for and dreaming about for 3 years already, and have another 2 years to wait. It's torturous for a parent. And being a child of parental alienation myself, who ended up hating and not talking to his parents, whose life went totally wrong, got involved in drugs and alcoholism, and I never became a criminal thief or a car thief or violent or anything like that. But I did screw my own life up because of it. And I know that's what's, you know, my son have a chance of growing up like that too. My brother was prevented from seeing his own son for 9 years. My half-brother, who was married to my half-sister. So me and my half-sister had the same dad and different mums. Me and my brother have the same mum and different dads. They met when we were all grown up, and they fell in love and married, and they had a child, who's my nephew, called James. And he's fucked up. I'm sorry, James, but you're fucked up, man, because you've got a criminal mind. You're so intelligent, you know. He sells things on eBay, and he sells really well. He's really good at it. I'm so proud because he does stuff like me. He does e-commerce and he sells so well. But you know what he does? He steals credit cards, or he steals people's identities and opens eBay accounts and sells fake Nike stuff. And sometimes he doesn't send it. He just closes the account, keeps the money, and takes the money and runs. That's criminal fraud. But it's not your fault, man. That's because your mother, Susan, yeah, she stopped you seeing your dad, and you didn't have a father figure to teach you some ethics and morals. And so you grew up like I did, like my son's going to, and like you did, fucked up. You know, now you're there on ecstasy and all fucked up on drugs, just like I was when I was your age. And you think it's good, and you've got all of these stupid opinions, and you came thinking, trying to impress your Uncle Spencer, showing me all of your eBay achievements and stuff, and how much money you're making, which I was so proud until I realised, till you told me the way you're doing it, with dishonesty. I told you, look, I sell with honesty and ethics. I don't need to commit crimes and be criminal. I'm selling more than he is. I make loads more money than he is. I'll take you around my house. I've got my own swimming pool. Private. I've got a wall around my house with an electric gate, you know. It's like a mansion house, my house. Okay, it's cheap. It's only about $800 a month. I mean, Thailand is cheap as hell. If you didn't know Thai like I do, you as a tourist, you'd probably pay 5 times that to rent this place. But anyway, the real price for a 4-bedroomed villa with a wall around it, with a sliding electric gate and an 8-foot wall and its own private swimming pool, should never be over $1,000 a month. That's the maximum. And it should be less, about $800. I pay about $800 a month for this. Okay? You're listening, James? And I do it honestly. Yeah, and so I was so proud of you, how you're so clever, but I'm so ashamed of you because you're using your intelligence in a criminal way. If you're that intelligent, you don't need to commit a crime to make money. You do it honestly. I like to pay respect to the Buddha sometimes because he taught me so much. So if I ever say anything that's a good teaching, I would give the credit to the Lord Buddha. He was not a god or a deity. He was a man. He was a human being. The Buddha was a human being. That's why I love the Buddha so much, because the 40 teachings of self-practice and self-examination and get to know yourself and master yourself, which he taught, that's what he taught. He never told you to build a statue or burn some incense and bow to it. And in fact, he forbade it. But I have him because when I see the image of the Buddha, it makes me think of the real human who we call the Buddha, who once lived and gave a teaching, who's the cleverest person on earth. And his teachings are still valuable today. But he was a man, not a god. And that's part of his teachings, to show that you can do it, because he did it. He mastered himself, and he released himself from his own self-created suffering, and he learned how to die in peace, without fear, at least. But he was a man, a human, and that's why I respect him so much, and why I love the Buddha so much, because his teachings are what has made me who I am, and taught me everything that I know about myself, and taught me the path to Nibbana, what you religious people call Nibbana. Taught me the path to the state of purity, where none of the causes of rebirth, none of the causes of future repercussions, you might call it karma if you're religious, that's all cause and effect. Set things in motion, setting waves out, they turn into tidal waves, like the chaos theory. A butterfly flying off a leaf can contribute to the cause of a tornado on the other side of the planet, right? You don't have to be religious to understand cause and effect or dependent origination. That's a nice teaching. I'm going to make a vlog about dependent origination, which is supposed to be one of the hardest things to understand in Buddhist theory. Well, parental alienation, child of parental alienation, speaks about his own parentally alienated child, and being who I am. I've spoken about a lot of other things as well. Hope I haven't bored you, and I hope maybe you might find this vlog interesting. Please comment. Maybe we should do like those vloggers, the thing that everybody's programmed to do. And subscribe down here below. Do what you want. You don't have to subscribe. You can if you want. I'm not into that. I just want to speak my mind. And the world will decide what's good and what's bad about me. So make your comments if you want. I would like to know your opinions. That would be very nice. I won't say subscribe. Gott tong ni, gott tong ni. In Thai, there's one who does that, a famous YouTuber. Gott tong ni, gott tong ni. Press here, press here. That's because YouTube teaches YouTubers to do that, because it really does make people subscribe. I think if your channel is really useful, and what you're saying is entertaining or useful, and it's really good shit, people are going to click subscribe anyway. You don't have to indoctrinate them. Because the truth is, you know, as a webmaster, if you say, click the link to read further, people click on it. But if you post something to Facebook and don't say, click this link to see, they don't click on it. They click like, and they don't click and go to your website and buy your product. But if you say, you suggest, we humans, we're a bit open to suggestion, you know. Subscribe, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to click like. You know? So be careful of that. Always watch your mind, how it's reacting to the information that's being fed to you. And that's my last message. May my son Angelo be happy and oblivious to this hell that's going on between his parents. And may, if the devas exist, or if the powers and authorities that do exist and are supposed to help in these matters will help, then may his parental alienation be stopped as fast as possible. And I will stop this channel, unfortunately, if he gets his right to travel and his right to Article 10 of the rights of the child is returned to him, which was deprived in an unlawful ruling which conflicts with an international treaty made by Judge Nicole Lowe in the FJC in case FC/D1688/2015, which you can probably find in the database and examine if you want. I'll put the rulings up in a video as well so you can actually read them, and I'll put her rulings in text in the comments in the description of this video, if I remember. Bless you all. If you're Muslim, may Allah guard and watch over you. If you're a Buddhist, may the Buddha and the Devas lead you to Nibbana and liberation from suffering. If you are Hindus, may Shiva and Brahma and Vishnu, Trimurti, watch over you, and all of the Devas bring you auspicious luck. If you're Jewish, may your God protect you. If you're Christian, may your God in the Lord Jesus watch over and protect you. And may all of you of all religions and even atheists have the luck and the blessings that we humans deserve, and to be happy and to be free from suffering. And may all children of the world be freed, and may the United Nations and the powers that be start behaving themselves and doing their jobs and free the children. All alienated, abducted, brainwashed children around the world. It's a topic that most people never heard of, and it's a serious human rights topic that needs to become a big, publicly known, worldwide known phenomenon, because only then will governments actually start to do something, instead of legislation and dialogue, which ends up becoming so complex that actually it's impossible to take action, which is why my son's still being alienated. And most children around the world are unable to be helped because there's too much knotwork of legislation standing in the way. Stop doing that, simplify things and empower yourselves. If a country breaks the international treaties with you at the United Nations, then that rule of each country has the right to conduct its own affairs within its own borders. It's called sovereignty, the respect of the sovereignty of each nation. They forfeit that sovereignty, and that should be written into the United Nations legislation, that any country, like North Korea for doing their nuclear tests, they still go in the United Nations and have a seat and a podium to speak. And they do that with their sovereignty right. Actually, as a United Nations member, for breaking the treaties that they have signed, they have lost their right to enjoy that non-interference with their sovereignty. And so actually you should tell them stop, or you're going to drop a bomb on them. Or invade and take over. So you have to change that rule of sovereignty rights to say that it only applies so long as they don't breach any of the treaties. But if they breach the treaties, then the United Nations are allowed to intercede. Yeah, just like, what's his name, Bush interceded and bombed Iraq. It was to steal the oil. We all know that was actually a criminal act too. But Saddam Hussein really did need to get rid of. That was an asshole. That was a real human rights abuser. So they did a good thing, but unfortunately they were captains of industry. George Bush, actually, the Bush family are co-owners of a company, of the Bin Laden oil company. They're partners in an oil company, which is why 12 members of the Bin Laden family were the only people and the only aeroplane allowed to take off the day after the World Trade Center bombing, so they could go back to Saudi Arabia. And that's because they are partners in an oil company with the Bush family. Did you know that? So anyway, save the children. And have a nice day, everybody. John Spencer, signing off.